Hawaii Entertainment News, where we will talk about all the news that's happening around the film and entertainment industry in Hawaii.
You're supposed to say, I told you so.
Enough! Are you okay?
Oh my gosh, he's Superman!
This is a video game, which means we all have special skills.
Aloha everybody, welcome to Hawaii Entertainment News. I'm Ted Wells, your host. Our goal here at Hawaii Entertainment News is to bring to you the creative expression in Hawaii. One of the great things about the film industry is our writers. Okay, so my guest today, his name is Dan Connell. Dan Connell just wrote a book called Spencer and Kent at 6%. He's here today to tell us all about it, and I want y'all to welcome him, Dan. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. All right, so let's talk about the cover first.
Yes.
Tell us what influenced the cover. So right now on the cover, there's a girl falling, and she's in the water, and there's some hands.
Yes. So a good friend of mine, his name is Miguel. He's an artist in Australia. He did the cover for this, and we went back and forth about that because he hasn't actually read the book, but we communicated about what we want from it. There is a seminal part of the book where the character Olivia, who's portrayed there, falls into the water and is presumed dead. Now, that happens pretty early in the book, so it's not too much of a spoiler, but the name of the book is Spencer and Kent. That's what the two hands are, Spencer's hands and Kent's hands, to try and save her. I also want to make it clear that even though she's not in the title, Livia is still so much a part of this book. Half of the book is told from her perspective. So we want to make it clear that even though she's not in the title, she's still such a big part of the book that she takes up most of the cover.
Nice. So also the thing on the back of the book I was reading tells a little bit about Dan. Dan grew up in Philadelphia suburb and now lives in Honolulu, Hawaii. In here, he's a teacher, a writer, actor, improv comedian, and a tall haole. Explain to our viewers what a tall haole is.
I'm 6'4". I'm a very white person, and even though I've been here for 9 years now, I still am bad at shakas.
Yeah, you will. Okay. Let's try one right now.
I have to show the back. I can't show the front because then you see my fingers doing this little thing.
So Dan shares his name with a scholar of African history, nonfiction. They're not the same person.
No.
Explain that to us.
He's a very old man in the Midwest. He exclusively studies Eritrean history, and it's very frustrating as a writer, that I can't use my own name without being possibly confused with this old African history scholar in, I think, Wisconsin. No offense to Dan Connell if you're not in Wisconsin.
Okay, Dan, if you're watching, give us a shout out, okay?
Don't sue me, please.
Don't do it. Okay, now as much as I want to dig into this book, first I want to introduce you to our audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, and a little bit about.
All right, I'll try and say what's not in my little bio, but I am a drama teacher at a local private high school, and I also write. I do a lot of things. The main thing about me is that I enjoy expressing myself creatively, and I like having a great time with friends. And also, this is most important, I love stories. One phrase I go by all the time is, you either have a good time or a good story. And a lot of the things that have not been good times have been great inspirations for this book, because this book is all about being 22 and 23 and being a hot mess. Because I think coming of age stories never really cover being in your early 20s. They always cover teenage, high school years, middle school years. They never cover that it's under the myth that those are the best years of your life. And it's also the myth that you stop maturing once you turn 18. When we all know, I think everyone who's here has had a wild time figuring out who they are,
Absolutely.
no matter how old you are. And so being a actual young adult, being 22, 23, I feel like that's where you have this false sense of identity with yourself about who your friends are, who really loves you, and how wrong you are about that. So I wanted to capture that in this book. This book is all about being 22, 23. It's all about all those hang-ups, suddenly drop friendships, and poor decisions you make. This is not autobiographical, but there are experiences that I have experienced that I think of a lot of people have also experienced that influence this book. I don't know what to do without spoiling. Let me just tell you one thing that actually inspired the book to begin with. Is in 2018, I was driving home. It was like 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. I was on Spencer Street, and I found,
ironically,
right? Well, I'll get to that. In the middle of the road, I found a phone that was dying. A phone that was at, I believe it was like 6%, 5% or so. And it was in the middle of the road, no one was around, completely quiet in Makiki at night, right? And I realized that if I didn't get this phone back to the owner tonight or that night, I don't have a charger for it. Like, there would be no way they get it for a long time. And so I made it my mission that night to find whoever owned that phone. And I accidentally locked the screen and I couldn't open up again. So I had to learn about this person all through their unread text messages. And all through their missed calls, figure out who they are, the background of their phone, the fact that his dad called him a few times to see if he was okay, the fact that he left messages from a girl unread for days about a test she was nervous about taking. I learned so much about this person whose name was coincidentally Spencer, that before I could get it back to him. So I did get it back to him. Long story short, I got it back to him. But it was very difficult, and it inspired this because this book starts out where two best friends, basically brothers, find a dying phone in the middle of the night and try and get it back to the owner and who they think the owner is and isn't. And she's the owner. Olivia is the owner. That's also why. Yes, I should have started with that.
That's nice to say. No, that's good.
Sit with me, imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read. 'Cause every kid across the nation deserves a book to read, and we can make it happen right now. No, I don't know what you've been told, but kids with books learn so much more.
So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child.
So let's join hands, book people unite, unearth hidden passion. To motivate some magic, to change the writing on the wall, writing on the wall. Book can make a difference. One book can inspire a child. One book can be the first little thing that helps to change a life.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
So limitations of art. Film, you have time constraints, you have filming constraints, you have budget restraints, right? Music, you have audio restraints, you have what has already been created, what makes yours unique. Theater, you have limitations of space, time, people, budget, again. What limitation for book is, because you can write hundreds of thousands of words. In fact, one of the longest pieces of fiction ever written is a fan fiction about Super Smash Brothers. All right. Now, the danger of books is the limitations are so hard to find because you can just keep writing. Limitations are your imagination. Yeah. Now, one thing that's challenging is this is not a visual medium. Just like you were saying, it's not audio, it's not visual. It's literally letters written on a page. You try and interpret and go from there. So one thing I like about books, why is a book the way I want to express my art, is that there's something so relatable when reading a book than you wouldn't get from other mediums. There's something where you insert yourself in there. Like we know all the time about protagonists that feel like they don't have a personality because the author wants you to feel like you are them. Now, I gave these people personality, but you still feel those moments. Everyone at some point in life or of the day is feeling like Kent. Everyone at some point in the day is feeling like Olivia. And that's what I wanted to figure out, is find those relatable little nuggets of character that's in everyone. Yeah. So I have a bit of attention problems myself, and one way as I try and always move the story forward. There's nothing in here that is useless, that is unnecessary. Furthermore, in between the chapters, something I've done is, let me find a good page of this. Yeah, at the end of each chapter, there's actually a song that I have included, a song list, a song title and the artist, that if you want to take a break from reading, if your attention span's almost done and you need a little break, the song ties in with the chapter before it, thematically, aesthetically, and lyrically.
Oh,
So that's a fun little break for those with attention
That's a
spans
good one.
and want to try and, because it's so weird that music isn't more integral with books as much as it is with film and TV, because it's not organic. There's no way to easily press play on a song while you're reading a book to sync it up. So I wanted to capture that and use that. Furthermore, one way that books are so unique, and why if it was adapted some things would be lost, is that your brain fills in so much of this. Just like it does in film editing, between shots, the Kuleshov effect, your brain fills in the gaps. This fills in the gaps of what people and houses look like. You fill in your own sort of mind. You're able to have much fuller picture of what's going on that is so satisfactory to yourself. For instance, I can have someone just list their name, not say whether they're a guy or a girl or whatever, and your brain will fill in. For instance, the first chapter, everyone except for Olivia, Spencer, and Kent is a gender neutral name. So I have like a Ryan, a Brooklyn, a Riley, a Taylor, a Tyler, and Alex. They're all hanging out. It's so interesting. Everyone who reads it tells me like, oh, why are all these girls at the party? You're like, wow, there's a lot of guys at this party, huh? Like people fill in what they're used to. So it's funny that I can use all this sort of background noise just to give this sort of cloud of atmosphere going on there, and people fill in the rest of their brains. So that's what's cool about books, is that your own personality is so much more infused with the medium than it would be watching a film. You feel more like you're more of an active participant in the art. It feels like you're in it. This is my second book.
Okay.
The first book I wrote in 2017. It's a book called Paradise Can Kiss My Ass, and that was a neo-noir detective. That was fun. That was a fun project, but that was just the first thing I wrote. Of course, I learned a lot of things from that experience, and a lot of things I wanted to do differently this time.
Explain the title.
So that doesn't reflect my feelings towards Hawaii. I love Hawaii, but the main character, I met someone here who hated being here, and I found that so funny to live somewhere you hate, and how difficult it is to leave that once you are in a place, in a network. And so I used that as inspiration, just made it about this horrible former police detective trying to solve a crime. And that was a fun one, whereas this book I think is more important and more personal and a lot more universal of an experience. Not all of us have had a mental breakdown and have been framed for murder. So this one, this has none of those themes. There's no serial killer in this book, so we're all good. But yeah.
But you know, the one thing that stands out to me, even in that title about Paradise Can Kiss My Ass or whatever, is how two people can have such a different experience here. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
I don't know where to begin with that. A lot of it is just personal compatibility. A lot of it is personal hangups. I think everyone should go to therapy. I think that's a lot of it, to be honest, is where you are isn't going to change how happy you are. It's the people you're around. It's the situation you're in. The physical, like people move here expecting to find happiness that they don't already have, but you have to find that within. You can't fix yourself by moving someplace that's warmer. That's the big thing about it there, I think, is so often I see people move here expecting it to fix them, expecting it to make them happier, and it doesn't. And it makes it worse. I know so many people who have had mental health crises here because they thought it was like a Hail Mary to them in a lot of ways, if that makes any sense. Yes, so the first play I was in was called Fox on the Fairway at Diamond Head Theater. And I got cast because I was one of the characters. He was a very lanky man who was goofy, who was very clumsy, well-intentioned and wholesome. But I basically was cast based on my personality, and I got very lucky with that.
Right.
But
that's the best. That's actually the best castings because you don't have to go so far outside of yourself.
That's right.
You just fall right into it.
And from that role, I springboarded onto other roles, into other shows, based on reputation, based on whoever saw that show. That got me so much work, even though I don't get paid much for it. And so much just from that one role that I did well because I was that character. But one thing that acting has taught me in forms of writing is what organically people say and act, what your impulses are, and to trust your gut. When I wrote this, I don't think about what I would do. I never think about what I would do. I follow the guts of the characters. There are a few moments in here that literally I have to ask myself, wait, they wouldn't do this. What would they do? There is one instance in this book that was so character-driven because I originally had a whole different ending written. All fleshed out, all written out. I was decently happy with it. But I realized at the beginning of that, the character Kent does something he would never do. He rings a doorbell. Because it's established already in the book that he won't ring it because he doesn't want to upset her dog. So I asked myself who would ring this doorbell, and I brought in a whole different character than I expected to bring in and start that ending. I scrapped the rest of it, and I just let the dialogue come out. The dialogue is first. Just let the characters talk it out, express themselves, warts and all. And so that's one instance where the ending was completely written because I was writing about what I wanted versus what the characters wanted. And it got so much better once I let them speak for themselves. Let the characters speak. Not trying to say anything profound from me, but make them say something profound from themselves. The way to create a story and to share a story is, and this sounds so cheesy, and you hear it all the time, but really you just need to write it down. Now, that sounds really daunting to do, because this is 45,000 words just about, right? And I never thought I would write this many words. I originally just wanted it to be a short story. Just aim to make everything a short story, and if it's bigger, let it be bigger. Don't aim to make something big at first.
What makes it bigger is the characters.
The characters. The characters and the story just go from there. What is resolved, what's not resolved, what things come up that they need to figure out. Because everyone should have an arc of some sort, and that's where you go from there. But my process. I plan on taking all of 2018, because I published my first book in 2017. Just want to take a break, not think about writing again, because that's really a lot to write a book. And afterwards, after this, I'm going to take a break too.
You give it so much of yourself, you know?
You do, yeah. It's almost as hard as moving, I'll tell you that. Anyway, I wrote a little half a chapter in 2018, and I let that simmer and sit while I went over all the things that it sparked in me in terms of inspiration. Then November of 2019 came around, and I did this thing called National Novel Writing Month. And that's where thousands of people all across the US and the world write a novel-length book in November. The goal is 50,000 words, and you have to get about 1,300 every day in order to meet that. Now, as a result, you're going to write a lot of trash. When you write, a lot of the stuff is good, but it's a lot easier to delete than create. So you got to have just one hat at a time, right? If you're writing, put your writing hat, because you can't fit your editing hat on there too, right? Just get it out there. You can always edit later.
That's a tweetable quote.
That's right. It's always easier to delete than create.
It's always easier to delete than create.
So just go for it, fix it later. Just put it out there, and no one, if you don't like it, you don't have to show anyone. When you write something, it can sit in your folder forever, right? But if you do want to take it from there, the next step in this process, once you have written it all out there, you need to find an editor or a writer's group. I am part of a writer's group here in Hawaii called the Aloha Writers Group. I was very lucky to find them. Just stumbled upon it through a friend. It's awesome because you have like-minded individuals who also write, picking apart in a constructive way what you've done. The next step is editing, and that's the hardest one because you have to come to terms with the fact that some of your writing is trash and can be fixed. But some of your writing, some of everyone's art is amazing. You just got to figure out and hone whatever parts of that are worth keeping and fix the rest. After that, I hired a professional editor, a line editor by the name of Josiah Davis on the mainland. I sent it off to him. I paid him money to basically, line by line, tell me what was working, what was unclear, what was awkward. Because when you write 50,000 words, ain't all going to be winners.
But when it's good, it's good.
What's good is good. So one more tip I have for writing is you want to write the thing you want to read or want to watch, right? You shouldn't make something just because you think other people like it. You should make it because you like it.
Okay.
Make what you like, and hopefully someone else likes it too. That's the whole goal, because there's then passion in there. It's really hard to write something good when you don't care about it. And one thing I really wanted was I wanted to see a coming-of-age thriller about being 22 to 23, because I never see that portrayed in film or books or anything that I've really read in an accurate way. You gotta care about what you do. If you don't, change it. Find something you do enjoy doing, or at least something you can tolerate doing is the better way of saying it. Chapter 11. I'm really excited about this chapter. Now, I won't talk about the contents as much. Not too much of a spoiler, but it's called Texts, and it's a chapter almost exclusively of text messages. Because one thing that inspired me also was Twitter. I don't know if you're on Twitter recently, but Twitter's pretty fun to absorb a lot of drama. And I found it was so much fun to read text messages from awful people.
Okay.
And just put them on blast on Twitter. So I wanted to represent them because it's so weird about how text messages aren't represented like this. And I don't know why I'm showing you. hey. It's so weird how text messages aren't really portrayed in an accurate way. So in this chapter, we have an abusive ex-boyfriend switching between "I love you" and "I hate you," and going between that. Right? Well, there's something also unique to what young women experience in text messages from someone who's romantically or sexually involved with them, is that it gets really toxic really quickly, and it's not well known what young women put up with in their phone. It's absolutely ridiculous. I really wanted to give Olivia a moment to own it and to win it. If that makes any sense.
I like it. Now, what was the? I want to find out. Okay, in the story, I know you mentioned that, as far as the title, the Spencer and Kent, but Olivia's not in the title, but she's significant.
Yes.
Part. Okay, was there a reason why she being the significant part, being a woman, but not in the title? What are your thoughts on that?
Excellent question. So when we start the book, we meet Olivia through Kent's eyes, and she is every big part of the story. But one, it's really about. I gotta think about the question again. That's a good question.
She's the fact that the story is more about Olivia. She's pictured.
Equally about. This book is equally about Kent and Olivia equally, but we start first with Spencer and Kent on their adventure to bring her phone back to her when they find the phone at 6%. So it's really the start of the story that was represented by the title. And from there on, it goes. Yeah. I do have an announcement to share about this. Through the Kickstarter that I use to fund this project, fund the editing, fund the publishing, fund the printing, fund the shipping, a lot of funding, I reached a stretch goal that allows for an audiobook to be made. So I'm going to be producing an audiobook soon with a man named Lachlan who works at a studio in downtown where he's going to produce. We've already got 2 actors, 2 talented local actors set up. Now you might ask, why are 2 actors narrating a book? That's because there are 2 protagonists, and the 2 protagonists is a white woman and a black man. You can't really have me do either of those, and you can't have someone do both. So would
there be a part of the book that you would read as the author?
I would be voicing Spencer, if anything, because the 3 main characters are Spencer and Kent and Olivia equally, and want to make sure that their voices as narrators are preserved, and use them to not only narrate the chapters where they're the POV, but also use them to voice the dialogue in each other's chapters. So there'll be a scene that's through Kent's eyes that he'll be reading sort of all, and narrating all of the in-between dialogue, the descriptions, the thoughts, etc., but have her voice in to make it clear that she's her own person too. Well, I'm directing the audiobook. I'm also teaching. I have to make my lesson plans. My first day of work is tomorrow. So what I'm working on I teach art, actually. I teach digital media, whatever that means, right? Which I take to mean about YouTube. Well, YouTube is 15 years old now. I'm teaching kids who are younger than YouTube. And those are the people who are going to make it, you know? So the rest of my energy I spend, besides being in a musical, which may go up in February, fingers crossed, I am working to teach future artists to hone their skills in photography, digital media, YouTube podcasting, and theater, and helping them guide the way to honing their craft. If you want to see comedy, I do improv sometimes. Our theater is currently under renovations, but there is socially distant comedy going on, hosted by my friend Patrick Terrell over at Square Barrels.
Next time on Hawaii Entertainment News.
I would wake up in the middle of the night and write a joke, because I'd wake up to a joke and I'd go write it down, or I'd wake up to a joke and I wouldn't go write it down, and then I'd wake up in the morning and forget what that joke was. See, as soon as you know what... I know. He gets it. So as soon as... Yeah. Bring him to the show. My son's got my sense of humor, so when I tell him a dad joke, he's like, that's not funny. But he gives me credit every once in a while. I come up with a zinger, he gives me some credit. And my wife is one of the most supportive people in the comedy scene, so hi, honey. She's over there. But I mean that, I'm not saying that because you're here.
Hawaii Entertainment News, where we will talk about all the news that's happening around the film and entertainment industry in Hawaii.
You're supposed to say I told you so.
Enough! Are you okay?
Oh my gosh, it's Superman!
This is a video game, which means we all have special skills.
Is that it?
I think so.